Oh, long overdue. It's the principal. I am the honorable, also known as JB Mathers. He is the blurred out cocktail, better known as semi-pro, aka Mikey Dominic. And joining us, as Mikey let me know, his alias Blake motherfucking Cannon is what he goes by. And gentlemen, Mikey, let's start with you. It's been a hot minute. How you doing, brother?
Been good, man. Just started the new gig 3 months ago, going really well. Obviously, my golf game has taken a turn for, I don't want to say the worst. I shoot anywhere between 70 and 74, just like my professional career. But
now you're doing it from the whites.
God, dude, I actually played blue whites the other day with some old guys, and I thought it was pretty fun. It was nice to actually hit 3-wood into a couple par fives, maybe have a flip wedge or so into a par four. But no, it's been going good. I'm glad to be back. Glad we're getting ready to do this, and we got a hell of a guest for you tonight. We got Blake Cannon, the man, the myth, the legend. Got to meet him a little while back playing some Call of Duty, of all things. And Blake ends up joining us tonight. Prestigious playing career, now coaching, doing a little bit of stuff on the side. Blake, we really want to welcome you to the show, man. It's awesome to have you on here.
Appreciate it. Happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
Guys, let me get the first question because you guys have something in common. Recently the game, I guess, has just had enough, and you guys have had to venture in to the other side instead of trying to collect paychecks. Baseball, basketball, the NFL, NBA, NHL, the game decides when it's done with you. You guys, though, kind of have to come to grips with the fact that maybe it's time to do something else. What was that transition like? And it's got to be harder when you got to make it on your own, opposed to a GM calling you, just go ahead, dude, you're done.
I'll go ahead and field that one first. I mean, that's one of the funniest things too, right? With golf, it's when you don't get cut, there's so many guys still out there, and Mike can attest to this, who have no business still being there. And there's a lot of guys who are really good. And it's like, well, that guy, you keep thinking he's going to make it, and every year he doesn't. And then he's 45, got 3 kids, and it's hard. But so I always told myself, like, every year, if I felt like I was progressing and getting better and getting closer, and it's kind of hard. You don't have a set metric for that. But I always told myself, like, if I feel like I'm moving forward, then I'll keep going. And assuming I have the funding to do it as well, right? That's the other factor there. But my last year, 2021, got off to a really bad start. And I kind of, like, at the beginning of 2021, I was like, man, emotionally, I think I was done. I was toast. It was just, I felt like I was done grinding. But I was like, me personally, I was like, okay, I'm going to give it 9 months. I'll make it through this Q school. If it hasn't turned back around, it hasn't gotten better, then I knew I was toast. But I knew I was pretty much done like 9 months before, but I didn't want to leave on a low, which for me was Canada Q School. My very last year was probably like one of my lowest points in golf. We can get into that story later, but I told myself, I was ready to be done right then. I'm like, I'm going to grind it out for another 9 months. But to answer that question, mine was always like, if I felt like I was going from here to here to here, I was going to keep going. Right. As soon as I felt like I started leveling out, tapering off, or not getting better, not getting closer. But it's hard. That's such a hard question for golfers, I feel like, to answer. And I feel like, Mike, you'll probably say most people lose money and they run out of money and they stop playing, a lot of guys. But there's a lot of guys out there who keep going anyways.
Yeah, most people run out of money. They're always looking for another sponsor. You run into that side of things too, where you always have the sponsor player nightmare story, mm-hmm. where either the guy sponsored the player. I'm not gonna, mention names on here. We know who a couple of those guys are. One of them was on Big Break. JB would probably know who he is. But it's like, guys sponsor you. They sit there and they go play. They make a little bit of money, come back, then they stiff their sponsor. Then people are going, hey, where the hell's my money? And then they just go ahead and ghost them, right? But if guys run out of money, I mean, how many guys have we run into that caddy at, courses in Scottsdale here, caddy at courses in Palm Springs, Texas, Florida during the winter, and live in an apartment with 6 other guys, save their money up, go play the Dakotas Tour, go play the All Pro Tour, go play, wherever you can. And when those situations arise halfway through the season, they're going, man, I don't know how I'm going to make it through Q School.
Yeah.
And then you got to dig deep and find some pockets to pay the $5,500 to get in, or crap, whatever the heck it is now, it just keeps going up and up and up. But, a lot of guys run out of money, and it's kind of a sad story, because a lot of times you see the players that got a plethora of talent run out of money. And then it seems like the guys that don't have a plethora of talent seem to have unlimited funding.
So true too. It's so true too.
There was a guy, one of the last times I had a Q school, he was on the range in Sacramento. He has grandfather caddying for him. And you knew that there was like a long lineage of money there. And I literally watched him miss the driving range, which is about 200 yards wide, 100 yards left, 100 yards right, and then walk to the first tee. I remember like seeing his name. I looked up his scores. It was like 94-89 through the first 2 rounds. I'm just going, how many people would pay to have that money that just have a plethora of talent?
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this legit. Let's say 2022 or even 21, Blake, when you gave your funding, if you were going to full-fledged, like sell to your investors, I got to be at XYZ qualifying tournaments all in. And let's say you don't make a single cut. Legitimately, what's it going to cost to give it a full go for 1 year?
Including living expenses too, or just
Absolutely.
golf?
I mean, hotels, travel.
All of it. We want all the details here.
Probably like, I'm going to throw out a number of probably like 100,000, I would say. Probably
That's
if you're
even a Red
including,
Lobster.
yeah. And that's not living extravagantly either. Like,
Right.
People laugh at that. And like, so when I was playing, I spent a lot of time couch surfing, staying at my parents' house, wasn't paying rent. And still, and I got some sponsors here and there, but never enough. I never had enough to cover everything. So I always knew I had to make X amount each year. And I figured if I would personally get to where I'd make about 40 grand in a year, which on mini tour golf isn't that easy to do, that's kind of what it took for me to break even each and every year. And I usually did a pretty good job of kind of staying level. I never got, probably the most positive I ever got was maybe 30 grand. And I knew I was like, oh, it's 30,000. That'll be gone. And it'll be gone in 2 months. So it's like, it's not like it was ever exciting, right? Because the hard thing is if you pursue everything, you're probably playing Latin Q school, Canada Q school, Corn Ferry Q school, a boatload of Mondays, the ones that make sense, and then a bunch of mini tour events. And
And how many weeks a year is that?
That's probably traveling. Yeah, like 35, 40 weeks,
Okay.
something like that. That's probably about right. I mean, if you're spot on, but a lot of guys do it. And it's funny because like you'll see a lot of guys who just play Dakota's tour, and because they don't want to pay for Mondays, because if you don't qualify, you're spending, $1,000 that week and you're getting nothing in return. So they go play events, but it's like, also, if you just go play Dakota's tour, you're not moving towards anything, even if you play well, other than making a little bit of money, but not a lot of money. So really you'd have to go play Mondays and all the Q schools. And it just gets stupid expensive so fast. And you can't make enough money back on mini tours and stuff like that to possibly make any money. And you can't even make money on PGA Tour, Canada, Latin America. Just to break even, you probably need to finish 20th on the money list.
Can you make a career on the KFT, or do you have to go to the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and obviously live? That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Where's that point where it's like, okay, I can do this till I'm 40, 45?
You have to get to the PGA Tour, I think. I always tell people, like, if you're on the Corn Ferry Tour, if you made money that year, you're moving up to the PGA Tour. If you didn't, if you didn't advance to the PGA Tour, you probably didn't really make any money. Granted, the guys on the Corn Ferry Tour probably they have a much higher likelihood of getting funding, right? But if you're finishing 50th on the Corn Ferry Tour, you didn't make any money. At least, if you just looked at the balance sheet, like, you're not walking out at a profit. Now, if you got $100K upfront beginning of the year from a sponsor, then you're probably making a little bit of money. But
if you're finishing 50th, that sponsor's probably going to run out at the end of the year anyways, right?
Exactly, right. So it's you're not making a living on the Corn Ferry Tour, and if you are, it's probably equivalent to working at McDonald's, on a good day. And that's just that's a fact. Take care.
Like,
let me ask you this, guys. I heard something years ago. I don't know if it still stands true. They said it's probably easier to stay on the PGA Tour than it is to break through on the Corn Ferry Tour, because
100%.
Corn Ferry is a total just fucking birdie fest. You got to go balls to the wall. And the PGA Tour, if you can just grind and make enough cuts, nobody may know you. You may not be a household name, but you can make a living.
I always used to talk to my instructor about this when I was playing well. We'd always joke around. It's like, if you dropped probably, and Michael, probably agree, like, if you drop, there's 1,000 guys probably that you could drop on the PGA Tour if you gave them status, said, here, you can go play all these tournaments, they'd probably keep their card. Staying on the PGA Tour is obviously challenging, but it's much less challenging than getting there. And I think they've built the whole system to retain players, because for them, A, it's a lot easier, and B, it's more entertaining for fans to see the same players and build up a fan base, so they don't want as much turnover. So they've made it way harder to get there intentionally, so that, you know, they retain more of their players, and it's just made it really challenging. And every single year it gets harder too, right? I'm talking to buddies, and I've been out of it a year, and like you were just saying, Mike, they've already cranked up Canada Q School. They've now taken away the spots that go to final stage, and it just gets harder, and it gets more expensive, and it gets harder every year. And it's like every month I'm out of professional golf, I go like, I don't miss it, just because they're making it so damn hard for people to get anywhere in golf. And like you said, the Live Tour is a whole nother thing. Who knows what that'll affect in 5 years? But man, for your average professional golfer, like, it's a grind. And it's, you know, even in minor league baseball, like my brother-in-law played professional baseball. He grinded in the minor leagues for 6 years and eventually made it to the majors and played 5. But like, yeah, those 6 years he wasn't making any money, but he also had a big signing bonus and then a minimal contract, and they're paying expenses. There's, for a lot of golfers, there's nobody paying your expenses. You know, you're just out there grinding, and every cut is the difference between, you know, where you get to stay that next week, if it's in a nice hotel, whatever. So yeah, it's a grind for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing too, to like butt in there, you know, it's bullshit, because I've gotten into a lot of arguments on Twitter, because Twitter's real, right?
Mike, you definitely
Yeah,
get in a lot of arguments on Twitter.
Oh my God. Well, Twitter is so real. I mean, people sit there and work their thumbs a lot, and they sit in their basement and whatever. But you know, the PGA Tour, I mean, their motto is, hey, let's grow the game, grow the game, grow the game, grow the game. And I go, they're not growing the game, they're shrinking the game. You know, like you got the guys coming off of PGA Tour U. Granted, like you look at a guy like Chris Goddard,
Yeah.
right? Won awards, got exemptions, won as an amateur in Puerto Rico. Great, like awesome. You know, guys like that, cool. But when you're talking about growing the game, you're really making it harder and harder to weed out the guys that are really trying.
Yeah.
They're really trying to get there. And you know, if you're increasing the entry fees of Monday qualifiers, you're increasing the entry fees of Q School, are you really growing the game? Because there's guys that are really good players where they come down to it at the end of the year and they go, man, I really got to grind it out to make Q School, or I really got to grind it out to get ready for the spring to go to Latin America or to go to Asian Tour, you know. And the other thing that I don't understand, and we've talked about it a lot in this podcast, how come the European Tour, which is now the DP World Tour, and the Korn Ferry Tour have not gotten their schedules down where guys can do both? They would always get to second stage and say, I have to choose between going to Birmingham, Alabama for second stage or going back to Spain. And you got to pick one or the other. And I mean, wouldn't you want to make it, I would say, accessible at that point in order to go to one or the other where you can play both? And then if you're good enough to make it through both, pick which one you want to go to.
Well, the end, it's like you said, it's an easy choice though. If money's, you know, dollars are tight, if you're in the States, you're going to go to Birmingham. And if you're already in Europe, you're going to go to Spain, but you're not going to get on a fucking flight and go all the way to Spain and spend all that money when you could just, you know, go hit to Mobile or Birmingham.
Well, that's when you got to just take the credit card and rack up the debt, call it good.
Say screw it.
You know, I'm going to take a pill and a Ibiza. I'm going to be fine.
Hey, they have those shows like PGA Cuts, and eventually we'll get this Netflix show. That's where they should really, that should be another number added to these guys on the KFT and the little grinder tours. Like, who's got the shittiest credit score, you know, to go with stuff. Like, let's get real.
Oh, okay.
Who really wants it?
No, exactly. But
Yeah.
to cut in on this real quick. So they have the matches, right? And I think the best guy in order to step in on these matches to give his commentary is Pat Perez. Because Pat Perez is like, who wants to go watch Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers play golf with Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau? Nobody. John Peterson, for the people, shout out to John, awesome dude. But he goes, if you took 2 KFT guys that did not make the top 125 and a couple mini tour guys that are sleeping on the couch every week and had them go grind for $1 million, you get some made for TV shit.
Yeah. Or even just throw Perez out there with them just for the commentary.
I think Perez and Barkley are worth the price of admission right there.
Oh man, dude, you make a bogey, take a shot.
Well, I was just talking to Perez last weekend out at Silverleaf, and dude, I've played a lot of golf with Pat, because so where I used to play up in Payson, Perez used to have a place up there, and I played a lot of golf with him, dude. You mic Perez up, and I mean, it's the entertainment value goes through the roof. on those, those kind of events.
All right, Blake, name drop for us, because I know, Mike, you told me you played with John Rohm at ASU. Clearly, you know Pat. Forget the game. We know these guys got a ton of game. I mean, I can turn on a fucking TV and see John Rohm's really good at golf, right? Doesn't
You
take a
don't have
second
game,
to
though.
figure that out. No, I don't. Trust me. That you don't need a TV for that too. Who are the guys that are like, fun to play with and you enjoy? You're like, oh fuck, this is gonna be around. And then who are the guys who may just want to cut your nuts off on the course?
So here's a good story for you that kind of goes in line with that. So my freshman year at ASU, Tim Mickelson's my head coach. Tim goes, hey, we got a guest speaker coming in. We're going to go down to the clubhouse. We're all like, oh, who's it going to be? Some ASU alumni, obviously.
It's right. Now, is this ASU Carson?
Yeah. So we're back. So Carson was still there.
Carson course.
So we're down there and we walk in and it's Pat Perez. And like Pat Perez is supposed to be like leading our team, right? Like he's going to give us a motivational speech. And like, I know who Perez is, but I don't really know a lot. I'm a freshman at ASU. I don't know. And Perez just walks up and he goes, all right, guys, here's the deal. When I was in college, all I wanted to do is have sex and drink beer. Like golf didn't matter. Still don't care. He goes, it really didn't matter. He goes, but you shouldn't do that. Like that's what I did. And yeah, I'm on the PGA Tour. We're just a bunch of freshman nerdy golfers, sitting there like, so wait, so you did it. You made it on the PGA Tour. But what are we supposed to be doing here? Grinding out there? And I'm like, and I remember I walked out of the meeting, I'm like, as I'm thinking about Tim, and I'm like, why would you pick Pat Perez to a bunch of kids?
I mean, no way he ever invited him back.
Yeah, all everybody wanted to go do is go party after that. But
they go to ASU.
Dude, John is the nicest guy in the world. Like, talk about golfers I played with, obviously spectacular golfer. Everybody knows that. He's a great dude. Gets a little hot on the golf course, but like off the golf course, I could never say a bad thing about him. Love the guy. He was always super nice, very humble. Dude, and the thing about golf is there's so many guys I played with that are just like so white collar and so full of themselves. And I feel like that's something that golf breeds a lot is guys. The first guy who would get a wedgie in a football locker room is there's a lot of those in a golf locker room, right? Because there's all these guys like they're good at golf. They're 5'8", they weigh 100 pounds, but it's like, oh, I'm the coolest guy in the world. It's like, dude, you're good at golf. The second you leave the golf course, nobody cares. Like people just are going to like you if you're a nice guy. But in golf, there's a bunch of those, but there's also, obviously there's a lot of good dudes, So, I mean, it's hard to say, like, nobody comes to the top of my head like, yeah, this guy was awesome to play with. But a lot of the good players I played with, most of them were good dudes. Like,
so a guy like Rohm or a guy like Pat Perez, I mean, they seem to attack the game very differently. Maybe they both run hot could be the only, correlation they have. But when you play with a guy like Rohm and you're a guy trying to grind, you're trying to get to the tour, is it his, because I'm assuming all you guys got all these fucking shots, but is it his, can he do shit with the golf ball that other guys can't? Or does he have a mental game that sets him apart? Like when you watch him, I'm sure mentally you're taking notes and you're like, okay, this is what this guy's got that I don't.
So I got two John Rohm stories that I think highlight that. The first one is he had hurt his wrist, and I don't remember how he hurt it in college, but he literally had to wear a brace where like he couldn't bend his wrist. So he goes out to the golf course and I'm watching him hit balls and all he can hit's like stingers, right? Like, I mean, literally his wrist could not release the golf club. So he's hitting everything like 10 feet high off the ground. He's obviously still playing the next tournament. I'm like, he's going to play terrible. He ends up winning the golf tournament. And I'm like, dude, you literally had to reinvent your golf swing that week. Most people wouldn't break 90, even if you're a good player. But the other thing about John is like, when we would go out before the home tournament, we'd play Karsten. It's pretty much the only time we'd ever play Karsten when I was at ASU. Tim never liked to play there because it was too easy for qualifying because you could, spray and pray and still shoot 65.
I love
so
that. Always go the hottest cart girls ever.
Yeah, exactly. So we go play the
Greyhawk.
Where they also pee in the water jugs.
Trump Greyhawk.
I was always told they pee in the water jugs at Greyhawk, so that's why, that's why the water tastes so bad. But John was like, he'd go out and practice and shoot 70 and 70, 71, like, because he was, he never had to qualify, obviously. But we'd show up at the home tournament, same golf course, next day, 63, 62, 63, I think he shot. And like, so it's obviously he has a lot of physical talent. But he was the guy that most people who don't make it when they hit tournaments maybe do some things a little worse. Everything in John's game got sharpened the second he hit competition. And you could see it. He really, like, in my memory, wouldn't go that low that often until he was focused. But the second he hit a tournament, he would turn it on. And I mean, he had a knack to do that. And it's like, and that's the part where there's not very many guys who can do that. Even on the PGA Tour, like, that's why he's one of the elite players out there. Perez is just fun to play golf with. Like, I think Perez is probably the same like in PGA Tour events as he is in casual golf. So I know Perez is polarizing, but I was playing. They do this tournament up in Payson, and it's literally a Payson scramble. It's a booze fest. Like it's a 2-man best ball format, pure fun, right? Everybody drinks 12-pack, having a good time. It's the worst, best public golf course in America. Horrible design, horrible shape. Everybody loves playing it. Pat Perez brings one of his old ASU teammates out to play, like why he would come play. And I'm paired with Pat in the second day because me and my partner played well or whatever. And Pat's talking to this guy after. He's like, "Oh, you're getting ready to go to Vegas for, they were going for a bachelor party or something." Pat calls the MGM and gets him some penthouse suite because that was one of his sponsors. Like Pat rarely knows the guy. It's like if Pat likes you and you're buddies with him, he's one of the best dudes in the world. But if you show up, and you invite him to your Christmas party and there's not some beer there, he's probably not going to like you very much. So it just kind of, but he's the greatest dude. But I always laugh about golfers, dude, because there's so many golfers who, they wrap their whole identity up in golf, and that's what, gives them confidence or makes them feel good. And it's like, it's at the end of the day, it's just a game, right? And there's too many of those guys where it's like, just be a nice guy, be friendly, be social, and I don't know. We need a few more Mike Dominics out there on the golf course. It's probably having some fun.
I was just listening to the For the People podcast. Again, I listen to For the People all the time. I mean, I play golf with JJ, Colleen, John Peterson. I graduated the same year from college. He was an individual national champ at LSU, some state university down there in the Southeast. But like listening to those guys is so fun because they tell old stories of the PGA Tour, right? Like, they're a little bit, they're 33, 34 to 40 about how the tour was when they played it. And I always had more fun when I was out there playing, where like I had a good caddy. We'd go hang out with the other caddies. We'd grab a couple beers afterwards, tell some war stories. It was great. Now it seems like everybody is out there with a TrackMan and 6 different coaches until dark. They don't drink. They do this. They do that. It doesn't seem like it's that. I don't want to say it's not a fun tour, but it doesn't seem like it. And don't get me wrong, these guys are flipping good. Like they are so good. But Tom Kim could not dribble a basketball 40 feet without kicking it off his knee. Tiger Woods has one leg now. I mean, like could Max Homa like make 10 free throws? No, but they're good.
Well, no, yeah, they're great golfers.
It's like, is that where we really want golf to go? Yeah. Is that kind of the way like it is? I mean, a lot of them are just, it seems like they're kind of robots out there and they're just doing their thing. I mean, that's
in the end, if golf is gonna succeed from the PGA Tour standpoint, like I think, golf in the world of recreation, it's fine, right? People love golf. It's outdoors. It's fun, blah, blah, blah. COVID did wonders for it. But here we've had the live conversation multiple times. We don't need to rehash that. But here's where I'm at now, right? The 2.0 edition. I get my thing the other day from the guy. I get in this golf pool each year. You pick these golfers and then, you make some money if you're lucky, a little gambling action. And he sends it to me and it's strictly based on the PGA Tour. And I'm like, fuck, man, I don't know if I want to do it because all of that has happened now is I care less about golf. Now, I hope the majors are good, right? Because these are going to be our first majors since the live really and watch these. Well,
I love it.
Go at. If the majors are good, but quite frankly, I'm at the point now, I'm not sure I give a fuck about the live regular season. And I don't even know what their majors are. And the PGA Tour, I'm as little interested in the PGA Tour than I probably have before I touch the golf club.
I think
these guys got to figure it out one way or the other because the product's just getting diluted.
And we'll weigh in on Dinger here in a second, but it's like you got Cam Smith. They're like, oh my God, he's dropped so much in the world rankings. Just won the Australian Open. Guy's completely dialed. 3-round events.
The world rankings are fucking stupid. And even the guys who live, they agree that it's a joke. I mean, you can't have the best golfers in the world not qualify. You got to keep politics out of it. But I'm just saying, as Joe fan, okay, somebody who enjoyed watching tournaments on a Saturday, filling it up on a Sunday, watching these guys go low, having a little action, gambling on it. And now I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm tired of the pissing match. I just want to see interesting stories and good golf. And I don't know if it's out there outside of the majors.
I agree. I've watched the least amount of golf in the last 6 months than I ever have in my life. And it seems like when you turn on the PGA Tour on a Sunday, it's like the same 10 names now. And it's just, you feel like something's missing every time you turn it on. The product's not as entertaining as it was, that's for sure.
Absolutely not. The star power is gone off the PGA Tour, in my opinion.
I agree.
I agree too. But rolling back to this, I mean, Blake, you're the guest. We're here for you. Obviously, you had your playing career at Arizona State, transferred to Colorado State, played the mini tours, like kind of, now you're doing a little bit of teaching, all that stuff on the side. Take us a little bit through like your career, where you went, what did you like, what don't you like? Just take us a little bit through that.
So I played my freshman, sophomore year at Arizona State. I was a local guy. Tim Mickelson recruited me to San Diego when I was kind of early on in high school. Then he took the job at Arizona State. And I always thought ASU would be an awesome school to go to, local, loved Sun Devils. So I played my freshman, sophomore year there, transferred for various different reasons, and ended up, I made the mistake. I transferred mid-year, which in hindsight was a mistake because it greatly limited my options. Not that I didn't love that I landed at CSU, but in hindsight, I should have waited until the year finished because it was just, all the schools had locked up that second semester's money for scholarships, and there were just a lot of schools that didn't have spots. So I ended up taking 2 different visits. And the only reason I ended up at Colorado State is because I had a buddy from Arizona who went up there. I had never considered CSU back when I was in high school. And I just knew I wanted to make a change. And having said that, I played the majority of the tournaments my freshman year when I was ASU. I was playing. I needed to do something different. So I landed at CSU, and because of a buddy of mine, and I loved the assistant coach at the time, especially Brett Goots. He was awesome. I liked the head coach, Christian Newton. And I took a visit up there and I was like, okay, it snows, but hopefully it doesn't snow that much, And
But that's similar to where you grew up, right?
Yeah, it was really like pretty much the exact same altitude. Grass was all the same. At first I was like, I had some weird roommate experiences because I transferred mid-year. So I roomed up with a random dude who ended up getting evicted 2 months into moving in with him. So then I had to move in with, I think he would be classified as the counselor for the athletics department. He allowed me to rent from him. And then the following year, I moved in with a bunch of my teammates and had a great time. But I ended up winning 2 tournaments there. So I won our home tournament, CSU's home tournament.
Where's that played at?
Fort Collins Country Club.
Oh, it's Fort Collins. Okay. I just want to make sure it wasn't Collindale.
No, it was at Fort Collins Country Club. And then I won University of New Mexico's tournament. I think it was the Tucker, which is a good tournament on a hard golf course. So I won that tournament. Kind of struggled a little bit late in my senior year, but still knew I wanted to go play, and went right to the Dakotas Tour, baby. First couple tournaments out the Dakotas Tour. And it's hard because you kind of figure out where you want to go. And, there's all these different paths in professional golf. You have Canada, Latin America, you have European Tour, Asian. And it's like, there's no right answer. I guess you just kind of figure out what you think you wanted to do. So my first year I landed on Canada, PGA Tour Canada for a little bit, and got conditional status, which if anybody knows on PGA Tour Canada is utterly worthless because you won't get a single start because there's only 12 events. And so my first year,
I think you have three events.
Yeah. So you get very little, right? If with full status. So then when you have conditional, it's just really, really hard. So I played my very first year, I played Korn Ferry Tour Q School, did not make it through my first year. Ended up going back, got Latin American status. So went down and traveled around South America, which was a complete nightmare. I mean, traveling down there, my first event, I go to Panama, and,
Dude, I mean, how banana is that? You're a young kid out of college and you're in fucking Panama.
And I don't speak a word of Spanish. I took French in high school. I took French in high school because I'm dumb and I couldn't speak a word of French. Now, if you ask me, I'm sitting there like, man, I should have taken Spanish. I show up to Panama and my travel bag, the whole top of the travel bag is missing. I mean, it's gone. My club comes around the carousel. My bag comes around the carousel. My travel bag, which was a soft case, looks like it got melted off. And I go, that's not great. I'm looking at my woods. My driver and 3-wood are shaved in half. So I have no driver and 3-wood.
Holy shit.
And it's, it's like 11 at night. And I'm with a buddy of mine, Austin Quick, who's one of my teammates at ASU. And
shout out to
Quickster. And he's just kind of looking at me laughing like, sucks for you, dude. So we try and find our
Well, that's player he's got to beat.
God. And we go up and there's a guy with a sign that says PGA Tour Latin America. Go up. Quick doesn't really speak great Spanish either. We're like, shuttle. We take about a 2-hour shuttle where the guy, I feel like he's going 100 miles an hour, and it's in kilometers. So I'm looking at the thing. I mean, we're going fast, and like we get to where he knows the cops are, and he just like pumps the brakes. I'm sitting in the back, just like holding on to my chair, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And we get there. How Latin America started is kind of how like Latin America is, but. So I have a 3-iron. The course is it's blowing 50 miles an hour at this ocean course. I have no driver, no 3-wood. I talked to the tournament director. I'm left-handed, so they're not going to find me a backup. I can't use any of my buddies' backups. I'm like, can you find me any driver, like any driver to use this week?
Yeah, there's not a pro shop or something.
So this guy's like he's like the director of golf for Panama. He's like, I'm going back into Panama City to do some media thing. I'm like, okay, great. He goes, I'll find you a driver. He shows back up. It's a regular flex 2 inches over standard, and it's blowing 50.
What's wrong with that?
I'm hitting this thing like 450 downwind and like 200 in the wind because it's just like spinning through the roof. The opening morning, I show up and there's smoke billowing across the golf course. I mean, like I'm having smoke inhalation, and I walk up to the tournament director with my shirt over. I'm like, what are we like? Is there a forest fire going on? He goes, no, the farmer next door just decided to burn his crop field today. I was like, it's only blowing 50. Good day for it, you know? And I'm just like walking up to the tee like, what am I doing here? You know? And I end up playing with, you want to talk about a guy I don't like? I played, I don't care. I'll drop a name. Augusto Nunez. And he was the meanest guy.
There we go, Augusto. That's what we love here on this principle is
that shit.
Who do you hate?
I hate that guy. I do. Because it's actually really funny. So I had this is just, I mean, the first tournament's all you guys need to hear because I had my 5-wood that I had in my bag, which I had to play. I played a 5-wood and a 3-iron because I didn't have a driver 3-wood, had gotten broken. And it was the first time I hit it that week in the first round, other than like a couple practice rounds, whatever. But the shaft was like, like had cracked from whatever happened in the thing, but I didn't know it was cracked. So I had a bad tee shot on like the 5th hole of the tournament. And I gave it like a smackdown, not like a slam, like a smack, and the shaft breaks. And I look up and I go,
really acceptable. Yeah.
I go, what the heck's wrong with my, like, why did my shaft just break? Like I barely hit it. So I'm like, I'm kind of irritated with all my clubs being broken. So I'm like, well, I'm not taking this piece of crap home. So I snapped the shaft off, like, cause the shaft had cracked. I snapped it over my knee and I throw the broken end in and put the head back in my bag. Thinking nothing of it.
No, you put the head back in your bag?
Like just the head, like, no. So I tuck it in there. And I'm talking to the other guy. I can't remember the third guy's name, but I'm just chatting. Like I'm being friendly. I'm not even mad. I go after the round, and Claudio, who I actually liked a lot, who was running the tour at the time, comes up. He's like, hey, can you come upstairs with me? I'm like, sure. He goes, you're going to get a fine for anger on the golf course. And I'm like, what? And the best part is Augusto had turned in the other guy because the other guy cursed like under his breath, wasn't loud or obnoxious. He had turned us both in. And we both got fined $200. I'm like, dude, I told him the story. I was like, dude, my clubs were all literally like half my clubs were broken from the airplane. I barely smacked it down and it broke. And I was like, you can ask the other dude sitting there with me. You can ask him. He was sitting there on the tee box with us. He's like, yeah, dude, didn't slam it hard. Didn't throw a temper tantrum or anything. I'm like, he goes, yeah, but you're going to get fined. I come to find out Augusto had a record for the most fines ever in PGA Tour Latin America history for anger problems. And what's frustrating is the guy played so good too. So I'm already like extra irritated, But it's like, I remember I sat back in the plane going home from Panama. I'm like, why am I playing this tour? Like, what am I doing down here? I mean, I had everything go wrong the first week. So
that's like, how much free alcohol do you have on this international play?
How much do you have here?
So how long did you grind it out? How long did you grind it out doing that for?
So what's funny is I made it through the first half, and when I started the year, I had conditional status. Made it through the first half. I think I was like mid 50s on the list, and I had full status going into the second half. Opted not to go play the second half of the season because the way they did it, and I'm assuming they still do it this way, you have to have your starts in the Q school by a certain date, or else you have to go play first stage anyway. So like I was at a spot where unless I won the first 2 tournaments pretty much, I was going to have to go to first stage regardless. I'm like, why am I going to go down? If I was in 10th, I probably would have gone and played, but I was like 60th. Because their season finished after Q school started, they had a really weird schedule with, how you would advance through Q school in Latin America. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go play Mondays. And I actually went down and Mondayed in two of the Corn Ferries that I tried to qualify for out of the 5 that I played. But I made it through the first half, and I was toast on Latin America. I was like, I'm not going back. I'm going to go play Mondays, play some state opens, and go to Corn Ferry Q school, which I made it through first stage that year. I finished like 3rd at Southern Dunes or something. And then I think I missed by 2 at second stage in Texas, which is, obviously a massive bummer.
Was that TPC Craig Ranch?
Craig Ranch, yeah. Wide open, long, and it was cold. It was cold.
All right, so we're gonna give a quick shout out to Riley Arp, your mentor.
Passportless Riley Arp, for the record.
Oh my God, he's doing great. Just don't get behind him in a buffet line. Okay.
Or expect him to meet you in Mexico.
I'm just saying we were expecting you, but God, you haven't updated your passport in 4 years. I mean, Jesus Christ, that thing's good for 12 years. Like what are you doing? But at the same time, so Riley did second stage TPC Craig Ranch. It was like 40 degrees all week, blowing 30. He hit as 72 greens. I think he hit 60 greens in regulation, has 72 and missed by 2. I remember like Mark Baker was caddying for him, and they go throw the clubs in the trunk, slam it. And Riley looks at Mark and he goes, "So where did I go wrong this week?" I have no clue, Riley. Where did you go wrong? Oh, you just miss every putt you ever looked at, but that's okay.
You just miss every putt.
break that down with the analytics, please.
Oh my God.
Dude, Riley, he's always hit the ball well. It's just, and the thing is, Riley, he's streaky with his putter though, because he'll have rounds. Riley, I remember, would shoot 62, 63, 61 a lot. But then he would go through streaks where he couldn't make putts, and it always seemed to be really hot or cold. Always really hot or cold. Usually not. And he never seemed to land anywhere in the middle with it.
No, he's by far, like, when we talk about best, like who do you know who's the best ball striker or player never to make the PGA Tour? Riley Arp's name comes up a lot, and it's not a diss. It's not anything like that.
No.
But I caddied for Riley at Q school last year in Utah. And every single player we played with came up to me and they go, "Hey, if he makes a swing and the ball is not on line with the flagstick, we know he made a bad swing." And it literally be at 12 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how good Riley is.
Yeah, he hits the ball spectacular.
He hits the ball absolutely spectacular. But, in terms of the putt, he's like, "Hey, where do I need to putt this from 25 feet? Run it right here." Runs a 6 feet pass. "Sorry, Pars, it's my bad." Misses the comebacker. Where'd I go wrong there? Riley, we love you, but flag it down there to 2 feet, tap it in. Life is good. Move on to the next hole. Shout out to Riley. By the way, if you ever need to order any clothes from Riley, they're super good. You'll get them in a year and a half, though.
Or you need somewhere. 2 things about Riley too. If you need somewhere to stay, if you get stuck at the Denver airport, he's got you. And he's a fucking magician with that Blackstone for breakfast. I got 2 more questions, Blake. First of all,
Magician.
as a professional golfer, being around it, what pisses you off most when you're out golfing? Is it slow play? Is it the douchebag who's going to tell you about their game?
Riley Arp.
I don't know what bothers you most as a pro golfer. And then, of course, the follow-up is, what is it like when you're out on these mini tours or Latin America? You guys are young 20s. You're on the course for maybe 5 hours. I don't know. You practice for a little bit. There's a lot of downtime, and I imagine there's some fucking shenanigans going on.
So the first one, slow play. I have a rule, which is the worse you are at golf, the faster you need to play. Because the worse you are at golf, the longer it's naturally going to take you. I have fun playing golf with anybody of any skill level, so long as they're fast. This is something I got to give my fiance all the time, because she wants to hit 9 golf balls. I've gotten her into golf, and it's like, and that's what I always tell her. It's like, if you're fast, people will enjoy playing with you. If you're slow, nobody's going to want to be around you again. It doesn't matter how bad you are. Nobody cares if you hit it in the trees. But if you move it along and have fun, so yeah, slow. From a casual golf perspective, slow play would definitely be number one. From the competitive, there's a lot more things that are irritating.
Well, just a quick example. I mean, obviously, a guy turning you in for fines, but what's the shit that would piss you off in a pro tournament?
I think I think in a pro tournament, if guys are, Mike and I were having this conversation back at dinner. The guys who are the quote unquote rules officials who think that, they can be the bosses and like they're the ones who know the rules by the book and love to butt in on other people's stuff, even if it's completely irrelevant to them. Like I've seen guys come in when they're not even in their group and start trying to give rulings, like from another tee box, that type of thing. I mean, and then there's guys who take themselves way too seriously on the golf course, and it's like can't have any, like, I'm not saying have fun as in like party. I'm saying just be able to enjoy yourself, have a conversation in between shots, whatever. Like there's guys who just can't have any fun. But going to the second question, yeah, you have a lot of different levels of shenanigans, I guess. Like that's one I'm definitely not gonna drop names, but especially down in like South America, I mean, there's some crazy stuff guys get into, and everybody has their thing. Like, man, I was a nerd though. Like my last 2 years is when I started playing Warzone and stuff. Like that's what I would do to pass the time. And
So you were not hanging with the locals at the local bar?
I wasn't.
Barrio.
Huh? What'd you say?
Barrio. Local barrio.
So I'm a big workout guy. Mike will make fun of me. So I always work out a lot.
Yeah.
Mike's made fun of me since I told him that. So like I was the guy always working out after my round because like that was my thing to do. That would for me golfing was a stress release too. That's why I like to do it when I was playing, because you have all this tension, stress, anxiety. Like that was my stress relief. I've never been a big drinker. I don't drink a ton, but I would always make an effort when I was playing to like go out to dinner, do something just to, because a lot of times when you're traveling professional golf, like you get in this rut where you literally don't have a life. You go from golf course to hotel, you have no fun. Like you do nothing. So I found things to do like when I was traveling, but yeah, on the shenanigan side, man, people get into some wild stuff down there, especially like because you're playing golf tournaments you're playing in Tijuana and some places where there's some things that happen, especially down there in South America.
Some nice local probably wants to find herself a nice rich American golfer to get her green card and come back home with.
There's definitely a lot of countries where that's the case, and I know a couple who have done it too. There's a couple guys down in Latin America who come back from Colombian wife, so it's an option.
I mean, I don't want to drop names, but guy that we know basically went to Asian Tour Q school and didn't understand why he made it. Now he's living in the freaking Philippines or whatever, has a wife now, or he's got to pay her a hefty weekly deal to cover her expenses. We're not gonna mention names, but
those things a punch, Mikey.
Yeah, whatever, but at the same time, it's like, that's what happens, poor guy. The poor guy. But I mean, in order to follow up on that, I know like JB said he had a couple questions, but like with you and your Instagram and you're teaching kids, teaching adults, seeing a lot of your stuff on Instagram. Give us a little shout out about that. Like what's going on with that?
So I sell real estate. That was what I started doing right after I got out of golf. And more recently, I've gotten into golf instruction, particularly short game. That's kind of my specialty. That's always been where my passion is in terms of golf instruction. It's funny because when I stopped playing, I took like 6 months and barely touched my clubs, threw them in a closet and took a nice break. Because after 18 years of playing golf every day, all day, it was nice to kind of take a break from it and do something else. And I'm still doing a lot of real estate stuff. But after that 6 months, I kind of was like, man, I'm missing golf. Like when you devote 18 plus years of your life and it's every day, it gets easy to miss it pretty fast. So instruction, and I do all instruction, but short game is definitely my specialty. Hashtag short game agent on Instagram.
Hashtag short game agent.
And so I'm teaching out at Dobson Ranch out in Mesa, and it's been really cool because A, I stay connected to the game, and B, I have a lot of knowledge that I can share with people. And it's been really fun to get out and work with students. And I've enjoyed it a lot more even than I thought I would. Because it's fun. It's fun to help people. And golf's a really hard game. Like it is such a hard game. And there's a lot of things that Mike and I do that we take for granted that we don't find that difficult. And because we've done it for 20 years, but people trying to get into it, whether it's a kid or even a 50-year-old who doesn't know how to, do any number of things in golf, it's like it is. And there's also an overwhelming amount of information out there on YouTube and people trying to do it all themselves, that it's not, especially with the short game, it's not that hard to help people. It's really not that hard to make them better. And it's not that complicated. So it's been really fun to kind of start helping people through that process and see some see some results. And I also know for me, it's something that'll help me with my real estate business down the road too. So they go hand in hand, and they complement each other very well.
It's freaking awesome. I mean, just like even seeing you on Instagram and what you do, how simple that you keep it. Like I was giving you crap the other night because I'm like, man, I got to think about width and now I got to think about tempo. Holy crap. How can I deal with two things at once? But you posted something today about a client that you were working with on his wedges. He was hitting high no spin wedges, whatever. And you're like, hey, let's get some more rotation. Let's get that back in the stance. Let's nip it a little bit better. I think it's awesome. I think it's great what you're doing. Keep it simple, stupid. The KISS effect. I think it's awesome. I think that you're going to do really well. I think it's really cool stuff that, is going on in your life with that. And I know for a fact that you could help JB because JB sucks.
Touché.
He is so bad.
Touche. I mean, that's why he has a business model because most of us suck. And like you guys take the ball, hitting the ball for granted. And once I'm like, I can hit the ball, at least it's on. And then 23 years of playing, it's like, I've never even fucking touched a club before. Fuck this game. Let's get straight to the cocktails and get my mixture right.
Dude, I always tell people that no matter how good you get at golf, either, it always goes like this too, right? I don't care if you're a +5 or a 15. You're going to love golf, hate golf, love golf, hate golf. And that's part of what makes it fun though, because you're never going to get to a point where it's like, all right, I'm good. Like I got this, because a week later you'll be like, I suck. And even the guys on tour feel that way. And it's like, that's kind of the fun of it too. You never know what's coming, and that's, you're always having to work at it.
It's not a skill you possess. It just comes and it goes for me. And it spends a lot more time away than it does in. But that's the beauty of golf, right? Like you're never going to get to perfection. And I know for guys like me, and I've learned the hard way, you better enjoy the company and the round of golf, because if I'm going to judge my afternoon on my score,
you're not going to have a lot of fun.
Suicide watch by 19.
If that's the case, JB never has any fun.
Exactly. Mikey, I see you got through your cocktail there, and the crown left over from the wedding.
It's actually not the crown, it's the bowl of bourbon. We got
fancy.
8 of them. 2 of them were drank. I had 6 left over here.
As a guest at your wedding, I'm a little pissed off that the party stopped and you have alcohol left. What the fuck?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. That's your issue because of what you had going on after hours.
Thanks for joining the podcast, everybody. It was a blast.
Absolute fucking blast. By the way, Short Game Agent on Instagram.
Yep.
The guy, the man, the myth, the legend on Instagram. Wazo is going to subscribe.
Mike, you'll be at my my wedding soon. I'm sure he'll drink up all my booze.
Well, absolutely. Next Friday, you got kind of 10 days.
10 days, 10 days from today.
10 days. I did not see the Instagram update on 10 days. I saw 11. Blake's wife, by the way, Mariah, tall drink of water. Absolutely awesome. Has not seen Old School yet, but we're getting there.
She hasn't seen any stinking movies, so
she's not seen any movies.
No.
And you did not meet her on the Latin American tour, correct?
I did not. No, I met her. I met her online while I was playing on the Latin American tour. Nice. She's not from Latin America, so
we are here for that.
Yeah, I was in Jamaica.
We are here for that, but no, Mariah is awesome. Crazy. But I won't let you know though. With Mariah, Blake is unhindered from the Call of Duty game.
Oh yeah, no, you got to set your own. You got to make sure she knows, where she can butt in and where she can't. The game
exactly. He's absolutely unhindered.
Who's better at Call of Duty, Mikey or Blake?
Ooh, I mean, Mikey thinks he's better at everything.
Question. This sounds like Mike's golf game.
Mike's a lot better at talking, which is kind of the case for him everywhere he goes in life. But the actual skill sets, probably me.
So when the first time I played with Blake, we're playing the rim. Shout out to Pat Perez for playing the rim. I outdrove Blake on the second hole by about 10 yards.
Oh, here we go.
After that, I was about 40 yards behind every single time. Now, did Blake miss left and right? Yes.
That's why I
But
teach
was he
short
40
game.
yards past me? Absolutely. I
With
mean,
that 3-iron, probably too.
well, no, well, definitely with the 3-iron. But the thing about Blake, played with a lot of good golfers. I've never been more confident in anyone to make a putt 15 feet and in than Blake can. The guy's short game is unbelievable. It's awesome.
Short game
Like
agent.
you got to look at it. I mean, it's one of those things where like every time he lined up over a putt with his little, did you have an arm lock?
It's a counterbalance. It's just like a longer
Yeah,
than standard
counterbalance,
putter,
whatever
yeah.
bullshit, whatever you got to do to cheat. But goddamn, I mean, the guy was absolute nails. Like every time he stood over a putt, I'm like, this has got to go in, and it did. Guy's a fucking stud.
I can
Hey,
putt and
Blake.
chip because I hit a lot of drivers sideways, so I got good at it.
Blake,
Well,
we
here's the thing:
appreciate it.
if you come to me for a lesson, I'll get that figured out.
That what I would pay to see Mikey giving Blake a lesson.
Well,
about golf, or maybe
exactly,
just
but we
life
got
in
we got it.
general, Call of Duty, marriage, weddings, you name it.
Oh, I got a lot of marriage advice for you. By the way, okay. Last question before we go. The steak that you had at Casa de Dominic.
Oof.
How do you rate it?
I mean, it was pretty spectacular. I will give you credit. It was cooked to perfection. A nice little medium rare, somewhere in between there. Juicy, flavorful. Whatever that beer was that was on tap that I had about 8 of,
805.
definitely added to the flavor. And yeah, you had talked about being a chef and you exceeded the expectations. I'll give you that.
I love that.
Much better steak griller than you are chipper, because the first time we played golf at the Rim, I think you bellied 2 wedges across the green.
I was going through a rough time there. Don't worry about it. I was going through a rough time.
Well, Blake, I look forward to meeting you with
And
Mikey.
everything I missed was short sighted and into the grain. So you and I got to work on that.
Yeah,
Sounds
give him
good.
a lesson, Blake. I mean, come on, hook a brother up. Give this guy
Just a little radius control, baby. That's all it is.
Well,
Go cook you a steak.
when Blake swings at 135 miles an hour, we don't know what's going on, but we can really tone that down to where it needs to be.
Yep.
And tone it down, I mean, swing faster, hit it straighter.
I've been trying to do the straighter thing. We'll work on it.
Mikey,
Don't hold back.
have another cocktail. I love it. Blake, thank you. Blake motherfucking Cannon, special short. Wait, so what's the hashtag again? What's the handle?
Short game agent.
Short game agent. Mikey's semi-pro on Twitter. He will be arguing with someone either about politics or golf. You can guarantee it, and it's worth the price of admission.
I know I said this a second ago, but last time ago, Blake was born in Eureka, California.
True story.
Dad went to Eureka High School. We don't hold that against him. He's a logger.
And dude, and he's a lumberjack. Let's go. Go Jacks.
Go effing Jacks, baby.
Eureka roots, baby.
I love it. Go Humboldt County. Gentlemen, appreciate it. Semi-pro Blake Cannon. I am JB Mathers, also known as the Honorable Go Figure. You've been listening to It's the Principal.